Big game this weekend between Boston College and UVA. On today's show, we're going to be joined by Jacquie Franciulli of 247 Wahoos to talk about this game, learn about the Cavaliers and everything you're going to want to know about this game.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor and publisher of 247's Eagle Insider. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and happy Tuesday if you're listening to us live on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege for a free water bottle with any purchase. You won't want to take off your bird dogs, we promise you. It's behind enemy lines today here on Locked On BC, and I'm so excited to have Jacquie Franciulli. Did I have your last name right? I apologize if I messed it up.
It's okay. It's close enough. It's Franciulli.
Franciulli, sorry. I'm terrible with that. Well, Jacquie Franciulli of 247 Wahoos, who covers the UVA Cavaliers, and I'm so excited to have her on as an expert on this team. Jacquie, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So this is a big game. UVA 0-4, Boston College 1-3. The big news, I think a lot of folks saw it on Twitter today, is that UVA replaced their quarterback, or they're going to go back to Tony Muskett as their starting quarterback. Can you tell me a little bit why you think Tony Elliott went back to him, especially after Calandria had such success against NC State? And I know you were saying to me on your podcast, you're not sure what kind of quarterback he is, but can you just give us a little lowdown of what you've heard and what you saw in that first game against Tennessee?
Yeah, sure. So we're still learning about Tony Muskett, right? Because he only really played against Tennessee, and we've only seen a couple, snaps and plays at fall camp. So what Tony Muskett is, I kind of compare him to Alex Smith type of quarterback. He's not going to be a flashy guy. He's going to, he's an accurate passer. He has a good arm. We've seen how strong of his arm he is. It's kind of ironic that his name is Muskett. So, so we've seen that from him in fall camp, but unfortunately, the only game we got to see him with was against Tennessee. Now, Virginia had an O-line that had almost no experience coming back, apart from their center Ty Furnish, and then their left guard Noah Josie and left tackle Mikael Boley all had game experience, but they missed a lot of starters from last year. So they're trying to gel in that O-line, and they're facing off the first game of the year against an SEC defensive line who is one of the top 25 teams in the country. So that was a harsh hello, welcome to Virginia, and welcome to big boy football. So we haven't really seen him, and then he got hurt. So I understand why Tony Elliott said, okay, let's, we're not going to have a guy lose his position for injury. That was something that him and the staff had decided. So whenever Muskett was back to being healthy from his shoulder injury, he was going to be the starter. That was something that he said after, the first press conference following the Tennessee game. So that was something that it was already stated as fact. So he's kind of following up from his word. So this does not shock me that he decided to go to Muskett for this game because Muskett is now healthy. Now, I understand, even UVA fans, I have heard it from fans at the supermarket. I have read it in my replies. I read it on our message boards at Wahoos 24/7. Fans are, they would love Anthony Calandria, what he brings, the excitement he brings, the moxie, the confidence, the swag. I mean, he's from Florida, so Florida kids, they have a little bit extra swag, that unique swag to them. But he is still a true freshman. In the game against Maryland, he threw 3 picks and he fumbled the ball in that fourth quarter. The first pick that he had, that was a ball that was going to the end zone that would have been the tying touchdown. And then Anthony Calandria admitted after the NC State game that in the Maryland game, he let that one pick kind of derail the whole game for him. He just kept, he threw a pick, then he threw another pick, and then he did a fumble. Against NC State, we saw a little bit of growth from him. He threw 2 picks. One, and to be fair, with NC State, a defender who did a great job with that. But the second pick He shouldn't have thrown the ball, but he came back and led UVA to tie the football game with just a minute left on the clock. And then obviously we know what happened with NC State winning the game there with no seconds left on the clock after they got the ball with 36 seconds left. So with Anthony Colandrea, you still have a raw quarterback. I mean, he's a big play quarterback. You don't have an intermediary or medium, range passes with him. You're not going to get those. Let's just move the chains here and keep the ball in possession. You're going to have all or nothing situations with him, and you're going to still have, one of the sacks against NC State. He held the ball just a little too long. And with an offensive line that's still struggling to give you time, when they do give you time, you need to take that opportunity. When you see Malik Washington that leads all the ACCs with receiving yards, you're going to have to give him the ball. He was wide open. So again, he's still learning. He's still a rookie learning. A very good talent. I mean, kudos to Taylor Lamb and Dez Kitchings and Tony Elliott for finding him and all the scout recruiting staff at Virginia to find Anthony Colandrea, who's underrated recruit, didn't have many other Power 5 offers. So they found him, but at the end of the day, Muskett was who won the position at fall camp. There was a reason why he won that position battle. And one of the things I heard from talking to sources was like I said, he's a game manager. With Anthony Colandrea, he had a few turnovers. Against Tennessee, Muskett did not turn over the ball in spite of all the pressure he was receiving, all the times he was on the ground from all the pressure and all the times where the O-line let guys get to him. He did not turn over that ball. So in that regard, you're really eliminating one thing that Virginia needs help with, because it's kind of like the same thing that you discussed in our podcast about Boston College. They're hurting themselves. So it's either late penalties or drop passes or a mental error or talking trash and getting a penalty for it. There are little things like that. So when Virginia is having such a small margin of error, you can see why they're saying, let's try Tony Muskett, who won the fall camp battle, who is good at running this offense, who's more of your prototypical, I want to say almost kind of like that Clemson quarterback prototype of what they did in Clemson's offense. And he is a game manager. He understands when to throw away the ball. He understands when to, throw away ball, not take a sack, when to take the sack. I mean, there are things that you just know from game experience that he knows that Anthony Colandrea still doesn't, because he's a true freshman. So again, that's why you're going with Tony Muskett. And at the end of the day, AJ, it would have been a harder decision to move away from Anthony Colandrea if they had a win underneath their belt. They are winless right now. So, and the world that it is right now, the transfer portal. If you don't play a quarterback that you signed from the portal, or at least give him a chance, and bench him for an injury for a freshman, good luck getting another quarterback in the portal, or a lot of the other guys that you're facing in the portal. That stigma will stay with you. So it's like you're playing politics too when you're dealing with college football right now.
Yeah, definitely, totally understand that, and I hear that with BC too, right? Like you have Thomas Castellanos in there right now. And players from, BC landed their biggest transfer portal class, and we just lost one of them into the transfer portal again. But all of them, either are playing or are getting significant snaps, because you have to show the future transfer portal classes that you're going to come here and play. It's so funny though. Some of the things that you were saying are they mirror everything going on with Boston College. Like you were saying, like stupid penalties and talking trash, like Castellanos, another Florida quarterback, or quarterback with Florida roots, kind of did the exact same thing when he first got there and really got on BC's fans' bad sides because, he got nailed with a big personal foul in a big spot. So it'll be interesting to see what Muskett brings, and that mind frame of actually being a little bit, maybe even more conservative with a defense that is giving up more might actually benefit the Hoos, because, you don't want to give BC chances by making bad passes or making mistakes, because that'll give the Eagles a bit of a chance there. Now I have one more offensive question.
That's why.
Yeah. So like, I have like another, quick offensive question for you. So BC last week, Jamari Thrash and Amari Higgins Bruce just really tortured BC's secondary. They were, very, very strong wide receivers. And I think one of the strongest, just looking on paper, one of the strongest things that UVA has is a good pair of wide receivers. And is it Malachi or Malachi?
Malachi.
Malachi Fields and Malik Washington. What do these two bring to the game, and what do they provide for this offense?
They're big plays. They're explosive. I mean, in a game against NC State, I mean, Malik Washington was everywhere. I mean, he's one of the 3 wide receivers in Virginia history to amass 3 consecutive 100-yard receiving games. The other 2 are Jermaine Crowlins and Taven Wicks, who is now currently playing for the Packers in the NFL.
Yep.
So he's already joined elite company, and he's only been at Virginia for the first couple weeks of the season here because he transferred from Northwestern. Malik Washington is capable of getting you yards after catch. He's also capable of making the catches. He's a reliable pass catcher because honestly, last year, Virginia was one of the worst teams when it comes to drops passes. I think they led the nation at one point of drop passes. So he's a steady pass catcher. He runs good routes. He will get open. He'll win those one-on-one battles. Malik Washington, we hyped him up a little bit on Wahoos 24/7, but I don't think anyone expected him to have this much of an impact. And him and Anthony Colandrea has a really good rapport with each other. So it'll be fun to see how they use him against Tony Muskett, because obviously we couldn't see what the offense would look like. Again, we only got to see Tony Muskett under center against Tennessee. And then what Malachi Fields brings you is he's a mismatch. I mean, he's big. His frame is big. He can out-muscle you. He wins those one-on-one battles. I mean, if you look at that touchdown grab that he had in the 2-point conversion against NC State, he leaped over the DB to get that touchdown. He fought and won his battle. Those are the type of plays that Virginia lacked last year. There was, the 2 years ago when Brennan Armstrong was winning all those records, and the offense was one of the most entertaining offenses in the ACC. It was because Brennan Armstrong would throw the balls to Dontavian Wicks and Keaton Thompson or Jelani Woods, and they would make the play. He was giving the pass catchers opportunities to make the play, and that's what whatever quarterback plays under center of Virginia needs to do. And that's what Anthony Colandrea was doing. He's he's just throwing the ball towards these players, and that's what Malachi Fields and Malik Washington do is they get up there and get the play. Now, it'll be interesting to see the matchup against like BC secondary. I think for me, that's the key matchup for Virginia. They need to win those one-on-one battles, and I think for Virginia, I know Tess Kitchings will probably hate me by saying this because he will say, well, we got to run the ball. We need a balanced offense. But against Boston College, I would say you pass that ball. I think you can win those one-on-one matches against this secondary. So if I was Virginia, that's the battle that I would focus on, especially with those 2. But knowing you also have an athlete like Cedarian Harrison, you also have Dakota Tweedy, you also have J.R. Wilson that you haven't heard very much of, but those are also capable of, some mismatches with, Dakota Tweedy is a tall guy. He's got a nice frame. And those are the battles that I'm looking forward to watching on Saturday, because I think it's going to be what kind of makes who wins the game.
All right. In a moment, Jackie and I are going to talk a little bit more about this upcoming game. You're not going to want to miss this. Now, if you know me about my Birddogs. I love the look of these Birddog khaki shorts. They're designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and legs and give you a sculpted look. I wear these out to dinner. I wear them on the golf course. I wear them everywhere. Restaurants, they're perfect for anything. They're versatile, they look good, and they keep you cool. Now, I want to tell you, go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege and enter promo code LockedOnCollege at checkout for a free Birddogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free water bottle at checkout. I have probably 6 shorts and now a pair of pants from Birddogs. I even got a Birddog shirt. They're all awesome. You need to check them out. So you don't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. Locked on BC, AJ Black here. I'm here with Jacquie Franciulli from 247 Wahoos. And we are talking the upcoming game between BC and UVA. We were talking a little bit about the offense, and I want to ask her a little bit about Tony Elliott. Now we're into year 2 with him. And last year obviously was a very tough year on a bunch of different levels for that program and for the UVA community. How are things going right now for Tony Elliott? It's obviously the record isn't indicating very good progress, but is there momentum behind the scenes and on the recruiting trail that you've noticed? And are you seeing any changes in more positive momentum on the field as well, even though the wins aren't coming yet?
So obviously, like you said, it's been a very challenging time. Like Tony Elliott said, off the field. I mean, obviously they're dealing with the aftermath of the November tragedy in
Yeah.
the first couple games of the year. They went through several milestones that no team has ever done. I mean, he said in one of the press conferences following the shooting, there's no game plan for this. There's nothing that he can do. It's just you gotta move forward, not move on, but move forward. And this team, faced Tennessee in the opening game, but that was the first, game since Pitt from last year, which was the Saturday before the shooting. They played Pitt on Saturday. Sunday, these young men went to a field trip, and then three of them never got to see their families again. So Tennessee was the first time they stepped on the field. Then you had the UVA strong game against James Madison, where they had a lot of celebration of life, a lot of memorization of the three young men, Deshaun Perry, Lavelle Davis, and Devin Chandler. So again, the emotions of it. I mean, the teams lined up in the end zone watching this. I mean, I know a lot of people talked about the JMU game, and I mean, the weather delay took away the momentum for Virginia, but at the same time, I mean, that was just a roller coaster of emotions. You can forgive the team for not starting off great by they just, you can say they just buried their teammates once again because they're remembering them. So
Right.
it's just such a hard situation to be in, and it's even as a reporter myself, that game was hard to report on in I don't want to say constructive way because you still see things on the football field, but at the same time you're like, I understand as a human being why it would take them a while to get into their game mentality after that in the beginning of the game because they did it a pre-ceremony tribute. So I understand the late start. And honestly, even the rain delay, it was no there was a lightning strike, there was lightning, and they delayed the game for about like a little over an hour. And when you're on adrenaline high, you come back from 14-0 down, you're leading JMU and in-state team by 11. You're finally high, everything's going your way, and then you stop, and you have this emotional adrenaline in you, and then you stop playing, and it hits you all during the time where you're just in the locker room, and you're not playing football, so your mind is going away, and it again they have a slow start. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough time to come back from it, and they lost JMU. So it's such a hard thing to weigh that. But
Yep.
with Tony Elliott, he's dealing with, obviously, it's hard for us to say, but the shooting is discussed in the recruiting rooms, in high school recruiting. Parents are asking how safe things are at school, and you have players ask. I mean, players were frank during the December early signing period. They talked about the shooting. There was a question that parents asked right after the first month. So you have that on the recruiting trail still to this day, and it's the world we live in recruiting that is used against UVA as well. So you have that, and then as far as football, it's what we kind of said in the first half of the show in the first question that they there's penalties, there's things that they're so close into showing progress. I mean, when you watch the NC State game, NC State didn't win, Virginia lost. They had three late penalties in the last minute that cost them 45 yards at the end, and they had the opportunity to send us into overtime by blocking a field goal, and then James Jackson leaped over a center, and that was called for a 15-yard penalty. So then NC State was able to kick the field goal again, and then they won. So the only thing that you can see is that this team is bought in. There's more of a team unity in it because of everything they've gone through, the more of the brotherhood that they've gone through. You can see a little bit of what we're seeing from the offense. I mean, last year, the offense was just horrible. I mean, that last Pitt game, Brendan Armstrong threw two pick sixes in a row. So we see them moving the ball well. We see what this offense is meant to look because they're finally putting the pieces together. It's their guys, so they're not playing with Bronco Mendenhall's guys. These are the two quarterbacks that they recruited under center: Tony Muskett from the portal, Anthony Colindrette from high school. And then Malik Washington, they're a guy that came from the portal. Malachi Fields didn't play last year. He was hurt last year. So he actually first game back was the Pitt game. So he's healthy. So we're seeing him. The O line is finally getting better. And when you see the staff being open to move guys in that O line to make it work, Brian Stevens started at right guard and Ty Furnish started at center. There was issues with snapping the ball. There was some low snaps issue in the first 2 games of the season. By the third game, Brian Stevens was at center and Ty Furnish was the right guard. And now Jimmy Christ is coming back. And so we're expecting a shuffle there to happen. It's not on the depth chart, but I'm expecting possibly Jimmy Christ to factor in at right tackle. Then Uganda will move to right guard, and then that kind of shift that way. So you're seeing the staff being open to moving guys, to play guys that are performing better rather than keeping, sometimes you can have some coaching staff that are just stubborn. They're like, we're just going to play this guy and he's our starter. But they are willing to open. That's why whenever anyone talks to me about the quarterback question, I'm like, well, in other positions, you see them being flexible on who they play. I mean, at corner, Sam Westfall started opposite Cohen King. Then Malcolm Green started over Cohen King. And now a freshman, Dre Walker, is starting over Cohen King. So you see that they're flexible on there. So you are seeing some progress. I mean, it's better if you're winning when you see this progress, but there are flashes that this team is slowly getting it. But unfortunately, on the defensive side of the ball, they've had so many injuries. I mean, it's almost like a novel of how many guys are out for this UVA defense or have been out. I mean, there was one point that it'll be less time for me to tell you who's healthy than who's hurt.
Wow.
So there's a lot of factors in there, but they are seeing progress. It's just when you're losing, it's hard for a fan base to see that progress. Winning makes it so much better for a fan base, but there is progress there. It's just that Virginia needs to win a game. They need to finish a game. They need to be consistent through all 4 quarters, and they need to make sure special teams doesn't cost them a game, because every game this season, special teams costs them 1 play or 1 score. So you need to make sure that that's cleaned up too. So it's a long process is all I really can say. They talk about building a house and having a foundation. Well, they're still working to make sure that foundation is set.
So my last question for you, and then I'm going to get you out of here. What does UVA have to do to win this game?
Kind of like what I touched on. I mean, they need to play clean. I mean, you have to move the ball, keep the possession of the ball so that your defense doesn't get gassed, because, I mean, they have Sue Agunloe, defensive tackle. He's out for the season. Chico Bennett he had a freak injury during fall camp. He is back. He's played the last 2 games, but he's still working on getting back. You have Cam Butler, one of their best defenders. He's out for the Boston College game. You have Josh Ahern, who is probable. Ben Smiley, defensive end, that's going through concussion protocol. He may or may not play. You have Lex Long, a versatile linebacker safety, who's out. You have safety Antonio Cleary. They'll be out for a couple of weeks. You have true freshman Mekhi Buchanan at DN, true freshman Jason Hammond at defensive tackle, true freshman Dre Walker at corner, true freshman Landon Danley at safety, true freshman Caleb Hardy at safety. All those guys, some of them may be starting, some of them not. True freshman Cam Robinson, the linebacker. That's a lot of inexperience in that back. And when you go down the 3 deep and 4 deep, you're in a situation where you're not as confident in those guys because they just don't have enough snaps, more game experience. So for your offense, you need to stay on this field as long as possible, which is why I understand a Tony Muskett start, because when your defense has so many guys injured. So Virginia the offense needs to stay on the field. They also need to, I feel like, attack the Boston College secondary. And then they need to watch out, obviously, Castellanos. I mean, they need to pressure him. And against NC State, that was their best game as far as putting the quarterback under pressure. They put the corners on a little bit of an island, and it seems to work with him. I'm not sure if that would work with Castellanos. I think it worked better with Brendan Armstrong when you look at that matchup. But that'll be curious to see what they do there. But I think that's your those are your main things for Virginia. And like, keep it clean. Your margin error is very, very small. I feel like Boston College is the same way. Both teams, your margin of error is so tiny that you don't want to hurt yourself. I mean, that's like I said, NC State didn't win the game. NC State lost the game last week.
Right. Right. Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for coming on. Check Jacquie Franciulli's work out on 247 Wahoos. If you're an Eagle Insider subscriber, you can read all of her work and you're going to get all the details that you need to know about this upcoming game from the UVA sidelines. I totally recommend, if you have not subscribed to Eagle Insider already, get on there right now. As I said, we have hockey coverage coming up right now, and we have a 50% off sale to celebrate our new hockey writer coming aboard. So come on over. We're going to have some really top-notch writing. So Jackie, thank you for coming on, and we'll have to talk later.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm enjoying to be in Boston this week.
Enjoy it. Check out the North End if you haven't had a chance to go down there yet. That's the best food in Boston, in my opinion. But if you like Italian,
from my name, obviously I do.
All right, Jackie, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back in a moment as BC's secondary took a hit on Tuesday, as a player enters the transfer portal. We'll talk all about that in just a moment. Now, Jase is the place to go when the Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes to get a Jase case to fill out a simple form. So what you need to do: everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind, so that you're not hoping that you have access to so you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. This is Locked On BC, AJ Black. It was so great to have Jackie on. Jacquie Franciulli from 247's Wahoos. She is very knowledgeable. So, as I said, check out her work. Now, the big news of the day, outside of some of the injuries going on with UVA, was an unexpected player entering the transfer portal, and that is Malik Washington, a cornerback who has played 45 snaps for BC through 4 games. He transferred in from Harvard in the offseason and was expected to play a pretty big role in the secondary. Clearly, that didn't happen. He played quite a bit in that first game against NIU, and then his snap count just dropped. I'm not sure what the staff's not going to talk about it, but I'm not sure why he saw less time. But that was enough. Now he gets to leave, and because it's just at 4 games, he can redshirt and he gets to play someplace else. I don't think this is a big surprise. I mean, it's a big surprise because it's in the middle of the season. But it's not a surprise that a guy that could save his eligibility is going to try to get out of here at this point. You're not being played and you're on a team that's honestly struggling, right? So where does that leave BC? He was battling for snaps with Amari Jackson and Jalen Cheek. And, well, Jalen Cheek less so, because Jalen Cheek was more of a slot corner. But your depth takes a little bit of a hit. Instead of having Washington out there as a corner, you're going to have to go to CJ Klingscales, or you're going to have to go to Max Tucker, or someone else that's on your depth chart that hasn't played that much yet. KP Price, something like that. That's a little bit more worrisome, because if you get dinged up with one of your starting corners, because as much as they've struggled, Amari Jackson and Elijah Jones, I feel like are at a different level than a lot of the other corners that they have on that roster. Kari Johnson could play, but I'm worried now. Like the depth at that position, even if they've played poorly, when you have less depth behind them, that's not a good thing. I don't have much to say about Malik Washington. He really didn't make much of an impact on this team. I talked to him over the summer. I got to meet him. He was on this podcast. He was great. Mitch and I interviewed him here. You can go find that in our archives, but he's gone. Now, my interview with Jacquie went a little bit longer than I expected, which is great because she had a ton to talk about. So tomorrow I will talk about BC men's basketball's schedule that just got dropped. We haven't had a chance to talk about that yet. We'll also talk about this upcoming game. And on Thursday, we'll have Mitch on to give our predictions. You're not going to want to miss that. This is AJ Black. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. And you can get on with me on Eagle Insider. Get signed up right now. Thank you all so much. We'll see you all again soon. Take care.